Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership podcast with ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. This show was designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in a diverse setting.
All right, this is another impactful night of the Impact of Educational Leadership. This is episode 43. I'm your host, ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. Tonight's panelists are Lisa Wilcrout, Betzen, Rick Beaule, and Buddy Thornton. Ladies and gentlemen, please say hello to the people.
Hello.
Howdy, Bill Betzen here.
Good evening and
welcome from Arizona.
Well, so good to have this panelist here tonight. This is going to be a powerhouse discussion. Let me tell you a little bit about Lisa Wilcrout, professional experience in independent educational consulting, graduated from Indiana Tech, also worked with new community schools in Lafayette. Also, she has worked for the Asper Charter Schools, also worked for Burbank School District. Next, we have Mr. Rick Beaule, Bachelor of Science in Music Education, Indiana University, Master of Science in Education Leadership and Administration, a 17-year experience in teaching, serving as President of Clean Educators Association and Region 10 of the Texas State Teachers Association, representing well over 3,500 educators, currently teaching music for Clean ISD. Next we have Mr. Bill Betzen. He is a youth advocate. He is a retired teacher and social worker and a great-grandfather. After graduating from the University of Dallas, he worked for 17 years in child abuse investigation. Masters in Science of Social Work. He has taught computer applications in the Dallas ISD School District, and he started the Time Capsule Project. Last we have Dr. Buddy Thornton, Bachelor of Science in Allied Health Sciences, University of Wisconsin, Masters in Human Services Counseling and Executive Leadership, Liberty University. Doctoral learner, completing his dissertation at Grand Canyon University. Branding as a positive social change agent, Dr. Buddy Thornton, the positive social change agent. Proud board member of the Parent File and proud board member of the Brokenness to Healing Foundation. Tonight's discussion, how do we pivot from the COVID-19 to the digital age? After COVID-19, digital marketing platforms are now facing the challenge of integrating new digital technologies into their work. An opportunity now exists to redefine benefits and challenges of digital technologies in the new digital age. There is a great need for successful strategies that corporations will need to keep for employees after COVID-19. Teachers of the future will need to be both technically and tactically proficient. Being just a storyteller will not be good enough to engage with students, to add value, and to make impressive, impactful movement moving forward. Tonight, we will have a discussion on the pivot from COVID-19 to the digital age. I want to pull first from Lisa Wilcrout because she has experience in education. She's an educational consultant. She works with a lot with groups, with group think programs, and she does a lot of training in her field, whether it be courses, forums, or you name it. Lisa Wilcrout, how are you doing again?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing tonight?
Wonderful, wonderful. So glad to have you here with us. My question for you is, absolutely. My question for you is, what can we look for as it relates to educational strategies for digital marketing platforms and mobile devices and apps in the future, and how will they change as a result of the COVID-19?
Okay, well, based on that question, I kind of summarized it in 3 points. And my first point is, number one, it will change based on the teaching methodologies. The teaching methodologies are going to turn more technical, moving away from a common just classroom environment. With being isolated the way that we have this duration of time, we're spending a lot more technical time. Things are being broadcast, lessons, homework assignments are being put on bulletin boards digitally, a variety of different structures, the way that we're actually teaching. I can see more of that being brought into the classroom format. So I think our teaching methodologies will be more technical. I also see with the technological usage, we're having more continuous education. So it's consistent, it's continuous, and I could see that also being utilized for students who are sick. You know, you call your child in ill from school, you could say, hey, there's the digital format. You know, they could do that at home. And we also, with students that are suspended or, you know, out of school for a duration of time for whatever reason, we could say, you know, hey, there's a digital format. So that, I think, will change quite a bit. I think, too, having the technological capabilities, there's quite a bit of variety. So we have different programs. We now are incorporating more of the virtual labs and digital labs for science. We're also incorporating a lot of different programming that will really change how we use and actually do education in the classroom setting. I think, too, my second point is digital Wi-Fi availability. I think there's a lot of questions right now. Who has it? Who needs it? How do we provide it? There's been kind of a scare with that. And also, you know, with Wi-Fi, you know, who has it? Who needs it? I think when students are going to be registered for classes, probably one of the big things that's going to happen is we're going to actually have that question being asked. Do you have a laptop? Do you have a desktop? You know, is there a cell phone available in the household? That will probably take place during registration and class sign-ups. We also need to look at, if we have to go in an isolation circumstance like we are now, a situation like this, we need to know who needs these materials. You know, if I know Bill doesn't have a computer, he doesn't have a cell phone, I need to somehow get that equipment to him so he's able to access it. I think, too, for students that have a device, do they have Wi-Fi accessibility? If they have a computer or a cell phone, that's great, but if they can't access the Wi-Fi, they can't get anything, you know, digitally. So we need to be kind of in tune and educate staff as far as hotspots. You know, are there places within the communities they can get access? Or even to provide access, saying at our district buildings, at our schools, you know, different locations, and making that something that's posted. I think, too, as far as digital applications, there's going to need to be a lot more training upon the differences with you know, digital programs on a cell phone versus on a computer. There's quite a bit of difference. If you have one student on a computer, he has, you know, a laptop computer or maybe a desktop, they have a lot more features than someone who's just using a mobile phone. So I think there's going to be a lot more discussion about that as well. My last point, number 3, is planning. I think, you know, being thrown into the situation the way that we have been, setting those clear expectations was not really something that happened immediately. A lot of standstill because we weren't sure what was going to happen. So I think in the future we're going to be looking towards setting more expectations, having things pre-planned out. If we are put in isolation again, this is what we're going to do. So getting that format established as far as situational, putting that into things like our websites under a situation of isolation, these are the steps. I think that will also go into handbooks. I think, too, providing and posting information has become such a necessity now, and we've really learned that. So I think having it ahead of time set up as far as where we're going to have things set up on a website or a virtual board will be extremely important. And we'll have that in handbooks, we'll have that in early registrations, class enlistments, that type of thing. So I think that will take place as well. And lastly, I think we've learned a lot from our past experience with this situation of keeping instructions simple. So I think the more simplistic we make things, the less stress that happens, and making that something that's very important for parents and guardians of students.
Lisa, that was a cutting-edge response. You talked about terminology. You talked about social interaction moving forward. And it's with your experience that you were able to pull this forth. I know it was. It was your experience working in groups. It was your experience with data analysis. And so I kind of heard also you peek into a little bit with automation, because we're going to need this automation moving forward so that we can make big things happen with little energy. And there's automation systems that you can use, like Google Classrooms, where you can make an assignment, for instance, and you can send an assignment out to all your students in your classes. And so it's with this training that you were mentioning that it's going to happen. And so the models, like you said, are going to change, right? So that we can stay competitive. So you're going to start seeing these models evolve. And I love the way you pointed that out. And I know I was going to get there from you because of your experience in the educational field. So I thank you for that response. Another seasoned, absolutely. Another seasoned person we have on the panelist this evening, and we're so privileged to have him here. He's a youth advocate. And this man is very, very passionate about our students, about them having a fair shake, about it being balanced across the board, where all kids can receive knowledge as it relates to education and just positive life skills. And that is Mr. Bill Betzen. How are you this evening, Mr. Bill Betzen?
Doing well.
Wonderful. My question for you, how will educational institutions stay relevant after COVID-19?
That is an amazing question, because relevance has always been an issue, and so what we're going through now has been repeated before. And I mean, it's constantly a struggle of making our students see the value of what's happening in the classroom. Basically, we have had a long history of educational issues in education, and this is adding to that history. One of the things that digitally happened back years ago when I was teaching computers, we were using them to help bring the world to the students more rapidly. Now with COVID, because it really is forcing educators to master digital literacy. Now people are learning that they must learn how to use these tools, because it may be there are times when your students cannot be in the classroom, like we're in the middle of right now. And so this is a good learning opportunity. COVID pushed education by force deep into the digital age worldwide. And I think that is a very good thing, and I think it's going to help us if we use it to really get back to the family and cultural history of our students so they better understand it now than they ever had in previous generations. Because we can put more of that history, more of that knowledge in front of them now with digital tools than we have ever been able to do in the past. And so this really is a phenomenal opportunity in education. And I think education will become increasingly relevant through the digital tools. And it's because what we can use them to show. Relevance in education has a long history, and this is only adding to it in many, many, many different ways. And I mean, you can go into every subject and talk about things that can be brought into the classroom more easily now due to digital tools than it was in the past. It's a good time to be in education. I really do think that. And so I'm looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward to what we're going to be able to do with our educational tools, with our digital tools, and hearing the stories and the history that is built as we go through this time.
Mr. Betzen, a wonderful response. Wonderful response. You know, I like the way you talked about we're going to have to move forward and how COVID-19 has forced us to evolve technically and tactically proficient. And of course, there's going to be learning curves, right? But we're going to have to draw from experienced people, experienced cadre like yourself, like Lisa Wilcrout, like Rick Beaule, like Buddy Thornton, to keep us in the game. Were you about to say something?
Yes, just regarding the COVID, the most valuable lesson I think COVID is really pushing, if we respond to it, is the absolute necessity for Wi-Fi for every student in their home. And I mean, I hope we can get that message out there and get that funded, because it needs to be there for our students.
You know what? They just shifted the whole conversation, because the students are going to become, and they should have already been this, and I cannot wait to ask Rick this next question, but the students are going to become the customer. And we're going to have to give them their customer experience. We've been alluding to this all this time with these student surveys. And now, more than ever, the school district is going to have to adopt the model, watch this here, of Amazon. Amazon apparently has the blueprint moving forward in technology. I know that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers. My next question is going to go to Mr. Rick Beaule. Mr. Rick Beaule, how you doing this evening?
I'm good.
I hear it. So you have so many things going on. You're working out in the community. I mean, tireless hours. I'm seeing you on social media. I'm seeing you on TV. I'm reading about you in newspapers. I mean, you are like the hardest working man in Killeen. And that's something to say, because this...
What is this sleep thing of which you speak?
I know, right? And so let me ask you this question, because I know you're technically and tactically proficient as it relates to video editing, as it relates to imaging and website designs. And I know you use all this to get data analysis, right? My question for you is, what way will digital marketing platforms force organizations to shift to the digital marketplace more so?
In the end, I don't think the digital platforms themselves are going to force the change as much as COVID has, much like Bill Betzen said. So we've already been kind of heading that way for utilizing the internet more for tasks in our lives. But I was also saying that COVID's kind of helped define what our current limits are, especially in terms of education, because the guiding laws are in public education are free and appropriate public education and IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act. They're more than laws. They are promises to society that every child will receive an education that will help them live and thrive once they become adults, right? But in this case, they also represent a lot of the obstacles that we need to overcome in a COVID world, much as what Lisa was referring to, because right now, there are limitations to what the teachers can do in terms of truly being able to reach those students when they're separated by distance. And Lisa so eloquently spoke about the inequities of digital access and materials. They're also limited by the parents who had no intentions of being made co-teachers or teachers' aides, but suddenly are having to do that as we figure out how to operate in a digital world. And we all need to understand that COVID's not going away. If you put aside religious and freedom-based arguments, one of the big concerns that health officials have about churches is their ability to spread COVID by exposing people to the disease in an enclosed space. And that should be more concerning to all of us in public education, because schools are 5 times worse in terms of potential infection. You know, a church, which is what I'm using as an example, operates as a whole, and they assemble on 1 day per week. Schools, on the other hand, do their thing in enclosed spaces 5 times per week, potentially exposing everybody out there to COVID and then sending them right back out into the community. And that gives us the potential of spreading this virus at a horrifically high rate. So we need to take all of that into consideration, as Lisa said, when we plan to hold any sort of brick and mortar learning. Distance learning, making sure that we are separating kids in the hallways. Because if you think about it, a school is, every form of a school, every area within a school is an assembly area of some sort. So we need to have plans for dealing with all of those. And this is not going away. They're saying that the vaccine is at least 12 to 18 months away. The Texas Education Agency, which in Texas where I teach, has already put out a warning that classes are likely to be disrupted in 2021 because they're already putting out alternative calendar ideas and things of that sort. So we really need to take care of the lack of access that both Lisa and Bill spoke about that's needed to truly accomplish distance learning. In Texas, they kind of backed off for the last grading period of instruction, doing a lot of reviewing, doing a lot of, basic learning and different ideas, and passing out packets to those kids who didn't have internet access or whose parents said, I just don't want to do this. But we're not going to be able to count on that going forward because fate requires that everybody has an equal opportunity to learn. So we're going to have to find new ways to reach our students and teach our students to their maximum potential, as my district says, and stay within those laws. That means that the work of educators who've already had to overcome mountains to get where we are is nowhere near complete. We're going to have to find new ways to teach our students and overcome those barriers. And in some cases, we're going to have to find ways to help teach the parents to help their children access the new methods. And that means a lot more planning is going to have to happen when it comes to how we put out our teaching material. Our pedagogy is going to have to be better and simpler than ever. Our sequencing and our chunking is going to become even more important, and so our planning time is going to have to reflect that as well. I don't want to make it sound like this, this impossible mountain to climb. So I do want to stress that this can and will happen if we give it a chance. And if you look at what we've done over the past half century or so, we've really found a lot of new ways to teach our students. We've found new ways to unlock, understand, and aid the minds of young children that once were considered to be unreachable. And we're already seeing some signs of this in the digital world. I've been doing some research over the last few weeks into asynchronous learning ideas, meaning that not everybody, as Lisa said, is stuck in that classroom at the same time doing all this. So finding ways for kids to be able to approach it from different angles at different paces. One of the ideas that I've been looking into is a text-based course where students would get a chunk a day over a period via cell phone, giving them ideas and places for them to explore. And it would improve learning and help learning and give access to learning for those who have lower levels of internet access. Because if we can work to improve learning in a brick-and-mortar setting, we can also do it in a digital world. In fact, we must do so. Because until we can overcome those barriers, the opportunities of the digital world to aid in teaching are going to be limited by that worthwhile promise that we've made to future generations, that we've got to get everybody on the same page. And not doing so is simply not acceptable.
Well, I like the way you summed everything up, sir. Trying to take my job, I see. Well, I mean, you said basically we got to keep everything simple. I mean, the KISS method. I get it. I really feel like automation will be the next monster in technology. If you don't know how to use automation effectively, it's going to really leave you in the dust. It's going to make you really obsolete with your pedagogy, your teaching pedagogy. Wow, that was a lot to chew on, Mr. Beaule. That was a lot to chew on. That's why I got the next panelist here, and he's going to, you talk about making things simple, you talking about taking complex ideas and breaking them down. Well, you're about to see it happen right here, right now, with the next panelist, and that is Dr. Buddy, the positive social change agent. That's right, Dr. Buddy, the positive social change agent. How are you doing, sir?
Isaiah, I've just been sitting here reflecting on what the other panelists have said, and I really applaud their direct reach into
Absolutely.
The digital world, and I'm thrilled to hopefully put a capstone on this thing.
This night is revolutionary. Dr. Buddy, let me ask you a question here. Will there still be a need for traditional digital marketing methods like emails, things of that nature, moving forward?
Well, Isaiah, we have to look at the way the world progresses. Everyone understands that change is happening, change is inevitable. Everything moves forward at an ever-increasing pace. It has been well documented through many research methods that Everything that happened before 1900 has been exponentially multiplied by many factors since 1900. And from just 2000 to now, to the 20 years of this new century, we have exploded through the knowledge and the information age, and it's all been because of a digital presence that has definitely just filtered out throughout the global society, not just America, but everywhere. Anyone who has access to digital platforms has been able to make huge paradigm shifts up the mountain, and that is something that is not going to go away. Traditional digital marketing platforms, email, all other platforms, what people need to focus on is that they're not special, but they're essential. They are tools. Just like a vehicle is a tool to get you from point A to point B, digital platforms are a tool where if you need to find something, you need to access something, you need to explore something, you need to debate something, you need to pick the correct digital platform to do it. I mean, looking through some of the research, there are just so many defined digital platforms. We have mobile, video, display, analytics, we have social media, we have content driven, we have search engine optimization companies that make billions of dollars globally helping people navigate digital platforms. Are they going to go away? No, they are ubiquitous to our society. But digital platforms are at their very core an incremental innovation. What I mean by that is, since their inception, every time there's been an advance in the digital era, it has been incremental. Someone looks at what's there and finds a way to tweak it a little bit here, tweak it a little bit there, get it a little bit more effective, drive it further into the ubiquity that we all recognize. What's missing in the equation has been a disruptive event to explode the digital platform into everyone's consciousness, where we have to say, wow, we're being pressed not to just want to be in the digital era. Now we have to live in the digital era, and we have no other choice. The COVID-19 situation is basically a disruptive event globally. Everyone is affected. It doesn't matter if you're an essential worker or a non-essential worker, whether you're a teacher, a student, a parent, I don't care who you are, you will be affected by the need to socially distance, because viruses, once they're here, are here to stay. They may mutate, but they're never going to go away. So are we going to depend on email platforms? Absolutely. We're going to need to create bi-directional feedback cycles to communicate with people. Zoom is up like something like 900% over pre-COVID usage. And a lot of people just don't understand that. But the bottom line is, let's look at education. Pre-COVID, the statistics cannot lie. 63% of our students never go on to higher education. Does that mean that traditional education and education with all of its incremental change, as Mr. Beaule said, has been an incredible progressive movement through education, but it's still all been incremental education improvement? COVID is going to force a disruptive factor of 10 at least to move from the current to the new, which means from traditional education to a digital presence that we can no longer deny and we can no longer avoid. I don't like a 63% rate in society that says these children, we're just going to let them never have hope to move forward. We have to just embrace the traditional digital marketing methods, but now we have a chance to make a paradigm shift into the digital era, which will allow education to align with student optimization competencies. Students know how to use these digital platforms better than most of the teachers. You're going to have some teachers who are going to be traditionalists. They're not going to they're going to, kicking and screaming, we're going to drag them into the digital era. But I think because all teachers want to teach kids, they're going to come along for the ride. And it's up to politicians, legislators, and the administrators, people to drive us into the new era, understanding that at this point, there's just really no going back. We need to create modules on platforms. We need to have all foundational work delivered seamlessly to kids. We need to ensure that all kids have access to that information. And that'll allow teachers to do what they actually dreamed of doing when they came out of college. They can broaden the time frame that they use for focused instruction. The superstars, you know what? They can thrive in an asynchronous environment. They're going to go as far as they can possibly go, and it doesn't matter who the teacher is. The teacher may even be holding them back. The stars, well, they may need a little help, but they're probably just going to need a push. The rest of the students, the teachers can really focus on bringing them up into the modern era. They can give them hope to actually excel because the teachers can focus on each one in the digital platform without other people being involved. No shaming, no blaming, no bullying. All those social dynamics disappear on a digital platform. So we need a hybrid. I think we still need socialization. We still need kids to go to some type of a school environment at least once or twice a week. But the rest of the instruction needs to be digitally produced, digitally driven, digitally delivered. And I think that, above all else, means that traditional digital marketing platforms are not only here to stay, but we're going to disruptively drive them to the next level.
That was an earth-shattering response. Earth-shattering response. I like the way the questions build and the responses took each panelist to the next plateau, to the next plateau, to the next plateau. How do you measure education with technology in the mix? Now, because of this shift, because of the pivot to the digital age, we're going to have to look at the people that are spearheading this whole new age, like Amazon, like Facebook. Those are going to be the people that we need to model after. Those are the people that we're going to have to study. Those are the people that's going to show us almost the way if we're going to be technologically and tactically proficient moving ahead. These guys and girls have been studying people for years. They've been studying them through data analysis. Will you guys come back on to the podcast to discuss this conversation further? That's my question.
Absolutely, Isaiah. I would love to be on with the panelists. I think that everyone here has a different background and has a different spin and can bring a lot of passion as well as intelligence and experience to the table.
Yes, I would definitely want to be involved because this discussion needs to continue.
And I completely agree. Let's keep it going.
Absolutely, I will come back on.
By the way, one comment I have to make, looking back at history, the big thing COVID is going to push, it's going to force equity. It is going to force us to have equity amongst our students because we could have done it 20 years ago and didn't do it. But it's going to force it now because the time has come.
No, please, that was a great response because that takes me to my next question because we're out of time. But my next question is, what will be the responsibility of leadership during the pivot to the digital age?
I'll answer that. Vision, in a word. I think that in order for us to effectively make that pivot, we are going to have leadership that has vision. They have to be able to see the farther shore. They have to be able to see a place where that equity takes place. And they have to be able to envision the different steps, some of the obstacles that are going to have to be overcome, and have the drive and the communication skills to help lead everyone to that farther shore, to swim, to set that course through sea and stars, that we can reach that farther shore. But it happens with vision.
Yep, a vision and basically having a data-driven racial equity that people can see and measure and feel and know that it's happening.
I think, too, it's having someone that's able to lead change. Change is very difficult to lead. Moving from, one direction, hey, we always use textbooks, to, hey, now we're using digital equipment, that's a lot more challenging. So I think dealing with, the complaining of, we always did it this way, and this is the way we've always done it. having to fight through that and having a strong individual that understands how to get change moving. And I think the vision idea, definitely, but also having that pursuit to move it forward.
I've spent years, if not decades, being a positive social change agent. I've been an advocate for change, and I've always looked for that disruptive opportunity to go through a door that may not have even existed, even minutes, hours, days, or months in front of me. I think that leadership now has to embrace the fact that there's going to be people who are going to resist change, but we have to be masters at herding cats. And if you've ever tried to even get two cats to go in the same direction, you'll know exactly what I mean. Humans are like the ubiquitous cats. They all want to go in whatever direction they want to go. The best leaders now are going to see with a vision and with a passion that we have an opportunity to basically put everybody on the same path with a strong sense of equity, and that's what leadership means.
This is part one. The topic tonight was pivot from COVID-19 to the digital age. Our panelists tonight are Lisa Wilcrout, Beaule Betzen, Rick Beaule, and Dr. Buddy Thornton. Good night, enjoy yourselves, and be safe. Stay safe.
Welcome to the Impact of Educational Leadership podcast with ID3 for Isaiah Drone III. This show was designed to provide an exclusive forum on educational achievement gaps related to learner success while discovering relationships and family issues in a diverse setting.